I think beauty means to me that beauty is not only from the outside. I think beauty is inside. It's how you treat people, is how you carry yourself, how compassionate you are towards others. And I also think beauty is what mark you leave in this world, right?
Welcome to the Beauty Talk podcast, where we feature how the best medical practitioners help their patients to look better, younger, and healthier. Now, enjoy the show, and here's your host.
Daniel Gao here. I'm the host of Beauty Talk. We feature the top practitioners in health and beauty, both inside and out. I have Ramla Aden, a licensed professional counselor in Virginia and Washington, D.C., and a certified addiction counselor in D.C. She's the founder and clinical director of Caltum Counseling and Recovery, a growing virtual group private practice serving adolescents, adults, couples, and families. Ramla specializes in anxiety, trauma, substance use, relationship challenges, and life transitions, providing culturally responsive and compassionate care. Caltum Counseling and Recovery was founded in honor of her late mother, Caltum, who passed away in 2026, and the practice serves as a lasting legacy to her strength, compassion, and commitment to helping others heal and grow. So, Ramla, welcome and glad to have you here.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is, the first podcast that I felt that would connect with us and kind of, get us to talk about my mom's legacy and why the company started, and then also talk about some of the things that I do in the community in Virginia and DC.
Yeah, well, let's get started with it then. So let's start from the very beginning, though. Like, what first got you interested? And let's start with kind of the broad sense, the medical field.
Okay. Well, I actually didn't want to be in the medical field at first. I was, a typical immigrant, refugee child who was, you got to do business, you got to do something else.
Mhm.
So, but I realized business wasn't for me. So I remember taking my first psych class and I was like, oh my God, I love this. And so I also liked communication. So I minored in communication and majored in psychology from George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. So then that's what got me. And then I started while I was in school, I was working at group homes, mental health, group homes, intellectual disability. So just seeing the community aspect of mental health as a whole and intellectual disability, I really fell in love with it. And I've always been somebody who watched a lot of the criminal shows and forensic psychologists and kind of always wondered like, why do we do the things that we do as humans, right?
Mhm.
And what was mental health. And I think in the beginning, a lot of people, especially family members being immigrant, was like, what? You want to work with crazy people. I'm like, aren't we all a little bit crazy? So, and that's what got me. I think a lot of people in the beginning didn't believe in this field. But I've been in the field since 2012.
Wow.
So yeah, so it was really a challenging to convince my mom, my late mom and my aunts and every family member is, no, I really want to do the psychology thing. I really think I'm going to be a therapist and I want to do this. Everybody was like, I don't know if you want to do this. Go somewhere where you can make money. But eventually, now we know that mental health is a really, really thriving, not only just business, but is something that's impacting all of us all around the world and not just, North America.
Okay. Now I want to talk about your practice, Caltum Counseling and Recovery. It was founded in honor of your late mother, Caltum, who passed away unfortunately this year. But tell me a little bit more about kind of what was your transition from you working in this field back since 2012 and then now having your own practice.
Yeah, it was so fast, right? Never expected my mom to pass away. Like you never, ready for a parent to pass away. My mom had bone cancer
Ooh.
and she was diagnosed I got married at 2016. At 2017, she got diagnosed. So it was good 9 years that she had. And towards the end, I never really thought I was gonna open a business that fast. But her passing, I'm like, it kind of helped me with my grief. I'm not gonna lie. Right. And I did everything from scratch, right? Didn't ask for anybody's help to do the paperwork and do all the diligent. So it gave me a project that was an honor of a mom who, I'm one of six, right? I'm the oldest of six.
Wow.
So, she raised us single mom and my father passed away a long time ago, 30 plus years. And she kind of was really big on schooling entrepreneurship. She really was good at like all of my mom's family are very educated, and they're really adamant about that. So it was really important for me to kind of find something that I honor the women in my family, my mom, my grandmas. So it was really important that I picked a name also that was really women centered. And if you know, the name Khartoum is a Arab name. And is really it is in Islamic women's history. So it's really a powerful name for a woman. And now, I'm out also a woman. So it was really important that that legacy continued. So that was one of the reasons why I transitioned. And I'm building the company. We've in a short time, we've grown so fast. We're getting, connecting with the community and also connecting with nonprofits, working on our first, in training, providing trainings to staffs with nonprofits, and just making sure that we are giving other companies the tools that they need to be effective when they're helping individuals with mental health, intellectual disability, or just anybody on the spectrum, right? I think that a lot of people that do have mental health diagnosis, they're misunderstood. And I think it's really important that me being trained in this field for so long in a community-based first and now for the past couple of years in outpatient setting is really important that that background is something that you need in order to effectively support these clients.
Okay. Oh, it's a wonderful story. I mean, of how you started,
Thank you.
and your mother sounds like she was a wonderful woman raising
Yeah,
you, and
she's tough. She was
entrepreneurship
tough.
and schooling. Yeah. So now I want to dive a little bit
Yeah.
deeper into the actual conditions that you help treat. So there's quite a few in there. I know there's some that you
Yeah.
can prefer, like the anxiety, grief, major life transition, substance use. So it's a pretty broad category. And are those kind of the most common things that people come to you for?
Yeah, I think I actually like the complex clients, and I always say I like the severe mental health. I think a lot of people stray away from the severe because, again, I started off in the community. So for me, I've worked with schizophrenic clients, I've worked with bipolar, I've worked with borderline personality, and a lot of therapists are really scared of working with them because they're really challenging. And for
Mm,
me, I wanted to work and kind of provide support for clients who are hard to work with because I want the day-to-day thing for as a therapist, it does get boring if you are working with a client and the same issue every week,
mm,
right? I think it's really good to work with diversity, and it was really important for me to work with diversity. And the only reason I even got into the substance abuse part was I got a B plus in my master's program. I was straight, I had a 4.0. I got B plus, and I never was a kid who rebelled or even tried any recreational substance. So didn't know much about it. So getting that B plus kind of pushed me to, hey, I'm really not good at this. So let me like really do specialize and get to know. And I fell in love with it. I'm not gonna lie. Like I think clients that have substance abuse issues are some of the most honest people,
mm,
right? When it comes to they wear their heart in their sleeve.
mm,
They're super smart to the point that I always say they're too smart for
mm,
their own good that sometimes they blur the line and like teaching them risk assessments and teaching them that, hey, these are high risk situations that you're putting yourself in and the reward and the consequence do not align. And what do you have to lose? So like those are some of the skills that I do teach them. And the life transition and grief comes with like losing a lot of family, right? As my thing, my dad passed away when I was in my preteen.
mm,
So then now having mom pass away, uncles, aunties. So seeing that, it was really important for me to provide support for people that do have families that they're grieving. And grief is a lifetime, like, right? So that was one of the reasons why I got into some of that. In general, it's anxiety. Most of us have anxiety. So it's such a broad, right? So I've really wanted to tap into different parts of mental health and not just be focused on one thing.
mm. Now, I'm sure there's also a lot of crossover that if someone's going through anxiety, then maybe they're also suffering from grief, maybe they're going through a major life transition. So, do you kind of see that it's quite common that there is a lot of crossover between all these, I'll call it conditions, I don't know, for lack of a better word, but do you kind of see that happen quite often?
Oh yeah, for sure. Because you have to remember, so a lot of times with somebody that has substance abuse, most likely they have mental health as well, right? And that's what we call co-occurring disorders. That means that you have more than one. You can see somebody that has an ADHD, and then they can also have anxiety, and somebody who has major depressant could also be somebody who used substance. Like alcohol is a really big thing when it comes to depressed people, right? So it is a lot of crossover, and it's really important to know what it could lead to. So I come from a place of when I, have my first intake with a new client, I do the education. Like, hey, these are what I'm seeing, right? These are the symptoms. Like, what are the goals that you're looking for? And then also, when I do work with substance, I think it's really important to let them know, like, I hold them accountable, right? And it's really important as a therapist who is in an outpatient private setting that you are holding individuals with substance, which is a high risk, right? Or individuals with bipolar or borderline that do have a high risk lifestyle, that you are putting safety plans in place because those are hard clients to work with. And that's why a lot of people avoid working with them.
Okay. So at what point would you kind of say that people's going through this, they're suffering from grief, major life transition, substance use, all these things? When is it kind of the breaking point of enough is enough? Like I need to go seek help. Like where do you kind of see that, where's that breaking point where they really want to start looking for treatment?
I realize it varies, right? For individuals, I think that a lot of times it happens when they're in a relationship or something, or a family member says that, or maybe somebody had intervention with them. And with couples, the challenging thing about couples, and I always, talk about working with couples, is that they really don't come to therapy until the relationship is almost at the end. And I always encourage couples, and I always say, like, it's really important to start off fresh in the beginning, right? In the beginning, it's really important to build on that communication with your partner. And one of the biggest challenges that I do see with couples is lack of communication and understanding each other. So a lot of times people really come with their with end. Um, and it's really important to utilize, and I realize like a lot of Caucasians are really like the population that I've seen that really embrace therapy really well in comparison to immigrants, right? A lot of immigrants, household, parent styled, and when I say immigrants, I work with Asians, I work with Africans, I work with all type of immigrants, and I realize a lot of them really are not they're not for therapy because parents didn't believe in therapy. I will say though that the younger generation, the younger millennials and Gen Zs are really good about like, okay, I have a problem, I'm going to go to therapy, which I'm really proud to see because it wasn't like that, right, in the last 20, 30 years. So it's really important that within households that we find tools. And one of the things I realize about Caucasian families are and individuals are they do to come to therapy for everything. So every adjustment in life that they have, they're getting married or they're going to therapy. They want to switch jobs, they go to therapy. And I wish most of us were like that because it's true. Therapy is a place where you have a non-judgmental person sitting across from you who's actually helping you navigate your life, right? It doesn't always have to be when you're at your wit's end.
Okay. Now, how, because I'm sure you get this quite often. You get people coming in, they're like, "Oh, my spouse made me come, my mom made me come, my dad made me come, my whoever made me come. I don't really believe in therapy. I don't really need it, but they made me come." How do you, I guess, kind of differentiate when someone kind of needs therapy versus can benefit from therapy? Like, are there kind of like some telltale signs that, hey, this person can really benefit from it? And trying to break down the I don't really need it because I don't like I'm happy with things versus the I'm kind of macho. I don't believe I need it, but they really do need it. Like
Yeah,
what's
I
that
think
line?
I think one of the tools that's used for clients and even in substance abuse is used is that motivational interviewing. So motivational interviewing to see how ready you are for something, right? That's one of the tools that's used, and that's what I use when somebody says, "Oh, my mom made me come," or "My partner made me come," and I say, "Oh, okay, they made you come. That's really good. They must be really concerned about you, right?" Let's go through some of the things that they pointed out. What are some of the things that they pointed out? Right? Like you have to kind of interview that person to see eventually people do agree what their family members are saying, right? But it's coming from a place of saying, then why are you here?
Mhm.
Right? Like you don't want to do that as a therapist. You want to make sure that there is concern with their support system that they're seeing about this particular client and they're referring them to therapy for a reason. So it's up to us to kind of get the client to understand why and kind of get them to be ready to take on the step. So in motivational interviews, one of the most amazing things that I use, and I always tell them, listen, you're here because you also decided to come here,
Mm,
right? It's not only just them. You also decided to get in the car, book the appointment, do all these things. So I do commend you for even coming and listening to what your family said. They must mean really a lot to you. And then the more you break down the wall for that person, I feel like the more they're able to say, oh, okay, yeah, you're right. I mean, I do have, sometimes I do get upset or I do lash out or I'm angry. And I say, let's explore a little bit more about that. What makes you angry? So the next thing you know, the client changes their mind. So I realize a lot of times we need a support system who could recognize some of the things that we don't see because we're all human. And I think we all can benefit for therapy. Most therapists have their own therapists. Most of us have our old supervisors or all colleagues that we talk to about our own challenges, which I'm so glad that I've had a few and I still have a few. Every quarter, a bunch of us meet each other. We sit down, talk about all of our things that we're going through and some of the challenges we're having and how we can benefit this field.
mhm. Okay. And I want to dive back into something you mentioned as far as working with a lot of immigrants, and the treatment you provide is culturally responsive care.
Yeah.
And you kind of talked a little bit about this, but can you dive a little bit deeper into like what does it mean culturally responsive care?
I think that one of the things that I'm realizing is that there is a small portion of us that's in this field, right? I'm talking about people of color as a whole, right? And that includes, Asian, Indians, Africans, Latinas, everybody, right? That being said, there's not that many of us in this field, and it has been a field that had a lot of Caucasians, correct? So I think that if I'm an African American or I'm an East African and I'm coming to a therapist who is Caucasian, who's not trained in my culture, and I'm telling them about my family dynamic, right? I'm like, yeah, I had to cut my sister off. I'm upset with her, blah, blah, blah. And then next week I come to sessions and I'm telling her, yeah, we made up, we talked, and the therapist just told me that create a boundary. Well, that therapist is not going to understand because, again, our cultures are different. Family is really important for a lot of immigrants and a lot of people of color, right? They're very solid in their family. They understand they have a dysfunctional, dynamic family sometimes, right? And I think that nobody really has a perfect family, right? So that being said, I think that as a therapist who's Caucasian is really important to help those clients in a way to learn to manage, even though her family is dysfunction. And I think culturally competent is understanding the different cultures and also understanding what does it mean to be an immigrant? What does your family household look like? Right? What's important to that client? Is it important for them to still have a relationship with their mom, their dad, their sibling? And what is that going to look like for them in order to maintain their mental health? So I think a lot of times that doesn't happen. I've had incidents where I've worked with, clients that were immigrant and they've also had a Caucasian therapist, right? And sometimes I don't, there's certain things I don't do. So I will refer out to a therapist that I think, hey, that therapist is good at this. Go focus on that. So, and I've realized the feedback that I get from some of the clients, oh, they don't understand. And I'm like, yeah, but you have to teach them to understand too. But it is important as a therapist to be trained to be culturally competent, that everybody that you see walking in your door is not going to look like you, right? So that is why it's really important for me to talk about and kind of implement in my practice that we are culturally competent because, again, I myself are from three different countries. So it's really important that we all, and in all three different countries have a little bit different things that they do. They're not all similar. So it's really important to understand that we're in, North America, we are becoming a very diverse, country. So it's really important that we kind of implement that, especially for providing a care in a medical field.
Okay. And when it comes to treatment as well, like one of the therapies that you provide is the person-centered therapy. What does that mean, like person-centered? I guess like because I'm thinking, well, what else would it be if it wasn't focused on you?
I think that personal center therapy, it's really important to identify what the client wants. So when they talk about personal centered, it's saying that it's centered around you, right? is if I was doing therapy, it would be centered around you. So what do you want? What is your goals? And that's one of the reasons that is really important that as soon as you see a client and you're doing an intake or assessment, the first time that you see them, you ask them, hey, we went over all these things. What are some things that you want to gain from therapy? Right?
Mhm.
What are some of your goals? Because as a therapist, we're not in charge, right? Our clients are the ones who are driving, the car.
Mhm.
We're just riding along.
Mm, I see. Okay. Now, where do you see, as I'm sure you get a lot of this from your patients and your clients, what are some of the most common misconceptions or myths that you hear from your patients? Things that they thought that were true that are not true, or things that you explain to them and they're like, oh, I never knew that. I never knew that was a thing.
I think a lot of us have, as humans, I think we have a lot of blind spot. And I think one of the things that therapy does is that it helps us with our blind spots, right? I think some of the things that for example, a couple, right? I've had a recent, not too long ago, a client was like, "Oh, my partner is saying, that I flirt too much and that I need to blah blah." I'm like, "Okay, walk me through what happened." And then my client is like, well, this person was saying this to me, and I came back and said that. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, well, I said, is your partner introvert? Yeah. I said, okay. So they don't talk much to people and they're very stern in the way they communicate. I said, oh, you're the extrovert? And I'm like, so you do go, I said, in UK term, banter with somebody back. I was like, yeah, well, for somebody who's the opposite of you, that does seem like a flirt. To you is innocent, but to that person, it could come off as, and then my client is like, oh, okay. So I think a lot of times things like that we don't recognize,
Mm,
right? We don't notice these little things. And I think that a lot of times clients can come to therapy and say, well, I really thought a therapy was like, somewhere where I just go and I'm told everything I need to do. I mean, I've never had this before. And it's like, so and making them understand that, listen, therapy is what you want to make it. If you want to come here and you really want to work towards your goals, your aspirations, dive into your trauma that you want to work through. Maybe you're having, sleep issues and maybe you're having relationship issues. You can work through those, but at the same time, you have to be ready. And I think a lot of clients walk in thinking that we are going to tell them what to do. Well, so what should I do? And I'm like, what do you want to do? Right? Because at the end of the day, you have to learn these tools so you can be on your own eventually. The goal is not to be in therapy forever. So I think that that's the biggest misconception. And also, I think medication is the biggest misconception when it comes to therapy that, oh, I don't want to go to therapy because the therapist, all they're going to do is tell us and we need to take medication. I'm definitely not that type of therapist. I really tell my clients, listen, I do realize that your panic attacks are getting worse, right? Like they're not getting any better. We have to use all these tools. Have you ever considered medication? Oh, no, no, I don't take medication. I'm like, okay, have you ever learned about medication? I think that a lot of times people say no to things that they have not educated themselves on. I always encourage clients, hey, there's nothing wrong with going to your psychiatrist and talking to them and just learning about what options you have. And I think a lot of people are scared of just even finding out what options that they have.
I see. Now, that kind of leads into the next question as far as if someone is looking for a therapist, they've never worked with a therapist before, what advice would you give to this person so that they can find that right therapist who can really help them, they can connect with, they can trust, and can help them get through whatever issue they're going through?
I think some of the best tools that I've seen, and I'm part of it too, right? Psychology Today is one of the places that I've seen a lot of therapists, and I've always encouraged my clients to go. Psychology Today is one of the like it has so much diverse therapy. You put on your zip code, you find out everything, how to find a therapist. And once you go through the criteria that you want, you request a consulting, right? There's a 15-minute, 10-minute consultation that most therapists do for free and really write down the questions you want to ask that therapist. Say, I've had a couple not too long ago that was like, the husband was like, hey, um, asked me, they reached out, and then the next thing was like, hey, do you believe in God? You know, because that particular client was really important that I believed in God, right? It wasn't the fact that, I'm the same religion, but it's do you believe in a higher power? So, people want to work with people that they feel like they can connect with, that can
Mm.
understand, that they can look at the therapist and see themselves in that person. So I think that is one of the things, but also doing the consultation, you get to learn about some of the things and how the therapist works through stuff. You can ask those questions like, hey, what does therapy look like when I'm working with you? You know, if I have this, like, how can you support me? What type of tools you use? So all those questions are really important. And educating yourself before you come to therapy is good too, because it gives you that ahead that you can actually, what your therapy sessions are structured as. Because the therapist is going to tell you, like, hey, first session is this. I really, as soon as I get into it with a new client, I say, hey, I don't know if they told you anything about intake. Today's intake, where we do all the assessments, all we intake information, consent of release, and all that stuff. And then our next session is going to be when we really start on working on the challenges that we talked about, and we'll start working on the goals.
Got it. Okay. Now, Ramla, where do you think the future of mental health is going?
I think the future of mental health is growing. I think that the future of mental health is really looking bright, honestly, right? I think that there's more, I think of course in the climate that we're in and our country right now, I don't know about a lot of the nonprofits and stuff, and I'm hoping that in the next few years that a lot of our nonprofit works that happens in this country really gets the funding they need, because there's a lot of nonprofits that really do help when it comes to mental health as well, not just the private sector, but there is churches, there's communities that do provide support for individuals that can't afford therapy, and that's through grants, right? So I'm hoping that that grows, and I also hope that the insurances work well with therapists who are actually doing the work. But my goal, I think, is that in the next few years that everybody who is gonna eventually go to therapy. And I always laugh because I never thought I would have boomers as some of my clients, but I actually have boomers who are coming to therapy. And to me, it shows a promising future that it doesn't matter how old you are, but you're never too old to actually seek the help that you need.
Okay. Well, hopefully it continues that way in the future is
Right.
bright.
Right.
Now, Ramla, I do have one last question for you, but before I ask it, I do want to point people to your website at altumcounseling.com. Now, last question for you. What does beauty mean to you?
I think beauty means to me that beauty is not only from the outside. I think beauty is inside. It's how you treat people, is how you carry yourself, how compassionate you are towards others. And I also think beauty is what mark you leave in this world, right? How many people you've touched while you're on this earth is really beauty. And of course, the superficial part of beauty is obviously makeup and hair and everything else. But I think beauty is really like the inside work that you need to do to make sure that you accept everybody in this world. Because like we're all created, right? And we all have so many different things to offer to each other. So beauty is accepting everybody for who they are and making sure that you treat people well.
Very well said. Well, there you have it. Ramla sharing her expertise. So, Ramla, where can people contact you and your practice?
Yeah, you can contact me at katumcounseling.com. I am also in psychology today at Ramla Aden. And then also I can be reached at my email, which is ramlaa@katumcounseling.com. And then phone number 571-520-5686. I do have Instagram for Khartoum Counseling as well. I can be reached at that. We have not created Facebook. I don't know. Facebook is a little outdated for me, but we're working on that. We're working on that.
Okay, awesome. Well, Ramla, this is great. Thank you for coming on and thank you for sharing your knowledge.
Oh, no, no. Thank you for having me. I really love the podcast, and I love how diverse you guys are and different people that you bring in different topics. And it's good to see that you guys are taking the time to actually put a lot of more mental health therapists in this space.
Thanks for listening to the Beauty Talk podcast. Any questions, please contact the practice directly with the contact information provided during the show. We'll see you again next time. Bye for now.